Hey everybody, it is Coach Malcolm here, and this is my third video in my series of crazy ancient chess games that we are going to be looking at. So this game, you can see right here, was played in 1620, and these two guys, I've been looking at a bunch of different, older games from around this time period, and these two guys seem to play a ton of matches against each other, and this was one that I found. That is a pretty exciting, pretty wild game, if you ask me. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to be looking, playing with the white pieces today, but of course, like I always say, thinking about the position from the perspective of the black pieces as well to understand threats, ideas, blunders, everything, the works. All right, so let's get started. This is going to be a Gioco Piano opening. So like the game that we saw in the first video of this series, e4, e5, some things never change. Knight f3 attacking e5, knight c6, of course, does a good job defending it. Bishop c4, this is characteristic of the Gioco. This is a Gioco Piano. Bishop c5, c3. The bishop targets d. Sorry, let's make this yellow. Targets d4, c3, aims to support it. Black plays knight f6 here. One line is to play d3 and support the pawn on e4. But in this game, white chooses to play d4 instead. Pawn takes d4, c takes d4, and this bishop decides to give check on b4. White develops knight c3, and here, obviously, this knight is pinned to the king, and this knight is doing the job of guarding e4, which the knight on f6 attacks. So the knight takes e4, but it's not really, of course, white did lose a pawn here, but white is okay. After castles, they have ideas, bringing the rook on the open file, taking advantage of the knight, and they have, being castled, they're technically in the lead of development. They have easy development for their queen and their bishop compared to the queen and the bishop on the black side that are it's harder to develop at the given moment. So here, black played knight takes c3, pawn takes c3, and now bishop takes c3. In this position, white played a move that isn't technically the best move in this position. So here, bishop takes c3, I believe, is a mistake, and white can expose this black king, make it impossible for him to castle, and win this bishop. Well, not technically win this bishop, but get this bishop on c3. So take a second, see if you can find this fork setup. So you have to set up the Tact-Devote fork. So take a second, pause the video, of course, always if you need to. All right, so hopefully we see bishop takes f7, king takes f7, queen b3 is forking these two pieces immediately, and we'll get to take on c3. Instead here, white played queen b3, which is, still targeting f7 and attacking the bishop at the same time. And instead of really dealing with this threat adequately, black got greedy and took on a1. So how, as white, can we take advantage of this greediness? It's not, very hard to see. We have our idea. We talked about bishop takes f7. Now, in the game, black played king to f8, but let's just look at quickly king to e7. There's two options here. The most obvious is just winning this queen in pretty much 1 to 2 moves. So let's see, take a second or two, see if you can find that trick. All right, hopefully we see just bishop g5, skewering the king and the queen. But an even better variation, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, is technically rook e1, just immediately trying to go for checkmate. I believe it's like a forced checkmate in 8 or 10 here or something like that. Rook e1 attacking the king. If this king moves, we're going to develop bishop g5, make even. Okay, well, we can play bishop g5 attacking the queen. First, we can also play bishop h5 threatening checkmate on f7, followed by bishop g5 if we're interested. And after d5, we have this super neat move. Queen takes d5. Maintaining this threat on f7, and if queen takes d5, rook e8 is mate in 1. But let's go back to the main line, which is king to f8. And now, how can we, I've said this in the past videos, often when we're developing, We are creating attacks. We're making threats, and we'll have a great attack going, but we just need that little extra kick. We need a little extra support. So how can we develop efficiently, effectively, bring another piece in to help attack? All right, hopefully we see bishop g5. We mentioned this before, obviously supported by the knight, attacking the queen. Also just looking at these key squares, e7 in particular, that this king previously had an escape square, and now he does not. So this king actually has no squares now because of bishop g5. So here, black's only choice to save the queen is to go knight e7. And yet again, how can we involve more pieces? There's a number of answers here that we'll just take a quick look at. How can we involve more pieces in our attack? One is rook e1, which isn't played in the game, just piling on this pin on e7. What was played in the game was knight e5 to further support this bishop, support the bishop, and likely, I believe, to give the queen more flexibility so she can move away without that bishop just being captured. So here, black tried to cut off the queen's line of sight, d5, and a lot about chess is adapting to new positions, right? Adapting to the moves that your opponents play. So our queen is not as useful now, right? She was serving a really good, interesting purpose. Possibly this bishop would have moved to h5, threatened checkmates on f7. Now it's not necessarily the case. So how can this queen, where should she relocate to continue to create drastic threats on that black king on f8? All right, hopefully we found queen f3 setting up some discovered checks. I'm almost positive discovered checkmates would come if black hadn't stopped it, but black did indeed play bishop f5 to get in the way of this discovered attack. But now black has put, not only is this knight pinned right here, but we don't necessarily, if we had taken on queen takes f5, knight takes f5, bishop takes, rook takes in this position, we're actually, well, we would get to take on a1, but we're still down material here. We're down at least an exchange, and it looks like a pawn or two as well. So we don't want to do that. So how can we make this bishop end up being part of a pin as well and pile on it at the same time? That might be a little confusing, but take a second. How can we take advantage of the placing of this bishop and the king? All right, hopefully we found bishop e6, a super neat move. It creates this pin, and at the same time, it is piling on and creating just a lot of problems for black to deal with. Here, black, oftentimes in chess games, I've seen it, I've done it myself. Once you start making a lot of mistakes, black has its king open, he's under a lot of pressure, you begin to make a lot more. So black played the drastic blunder of g6 here, and now how does white have a very cool forcing mate in two? Take a few seconds, find this mate in two. All right, hopefully we found g6 opens up these dark squares for bishop h6. The king's only move is to go king e8, checkmate in one, bishop f7, beautiful. Attacking the king, the knight guards d7, the queen and the black queen and the black knight trap in the king, and this bishop plays a large role as well. So we did not indeed use our queen in the checkmate, but she played a very, very essential role in being a part of this attack, especially taking on f7, pinning this bishop. So every piece had a role in this game, except for maybe we could say this rook on f1, and I guess that rook on a1 that got taken a while back. So hopefully, if one thing the series has taught you is that 1620 was still a very exciting time to play some chess games, and maybe in the future these guys had a lot of very interesting matchups. We'll look at another one. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.